Welcome everyone, I'm JP Chatt, and today we're going to be talking about how to upgrade your live streaming setup, specifically the visuals. First, we'll talk about lighting. Lighting is one of the easiest ways to improve the quality of your video. The better your lighting, the less your camera has to work in order to produce a good picture. And when the camera doesn't have to work that hard, it can drop its sensitivity or ISO, which reduces the noise in the image and just makes for a better picture. So you can improve the quality of your image by ensuring you are adequately lit from the front and avoiding backlighting situations where you may be silhouetted by a window or other bright source of light behind you. You can also purchase some additional lighting designed for photography or videography. When doing so, I would encourage bicolor lighting so you can adjust the color temperature to match your needs and your desired aesthetic. Whether it's a colder blue light or warmer orange light, you can adjust it to your liking. Ring lights are a popular option, and many of them come with a mounting spot for your camera right at the top, which would mean only one tabletop tripod or desk clamped mount. Personally, I like the way a ring light casts its light on a subject, but you should try to find what's right for you. Some people dislike the reflection a ring light causes on glasses and other reflective surfaces, so instead they opt for other light types, and sometimes multiple lights. Using multiple lights helps eliminate shadows, whereas a ring light helps spread the light across a large area in a slightly different way to also help avoid shadows. The larger your light source, the softer the light. And what I mean by a softer light is one that doesn't produce harsh angled shadows, which brings me to the next method you can use to improve your lighting: moving your desk. Moving your desk in front of a window or another source of natural light will provide you with a nice large light source. And like I mentioned earlier, larger light sources tend to be softer. And if you add a shade to the window, that will soften it even more and allow you to modify the color temperature of the light. So, if daylight isn't the most flattering for your skin tone, maybe install a pink or orange shade. This will adjust the light accordingly. As you can see from this image on a window light source, a lot of light does illuminate the subject, and the shadows, though they are visible, they are softer and not so harshly angled and defined. So, a small change to your desk's location may be all you need. Once you've improved the lighting, even the camera built into your laptop is going to be providing a much better image. But you can take that up a notch too. Most webcams have a very small sensor, which limits the amount of light they can capture. After all, only so much light falls on an area a square eighth of an inch. And though there are upgraded webcams out there with larger sensors or 1080p resolution versus the average 720p, my recommendation would be to use a spare camera you may have lying around. Ideally, a camera with an interchangeable lens. But it is worth mentioning that during my initial testing, even my 6-year-old GoPro Hero 4 was providing a better picture than the camera built into my MacBook Pro from 2020. And that, again, is because the MacBook Pro camera is 720p, whereas the video coming from my GoPro was 1080p or higher. So, how do you use an old camera? Well, there are two main methods: a capture card or a webcam utility. A capture card is a hardware device, kind of like this one, that takes the HDMI feed from your camera and brings it into your computer via USB. This hardware device is seen by your computer as a webcam. A webcam utility is a piece of software that allows your computer to recognize your camera as a webcam when it's plugged in via USB. All the big camera manufacturers created utilities like these recently due to COVID and the rise of work-from-home video conferencing. So I encourage you to Google it and see if your camera is compatible with your manufacturer's webcam utility. This would be the first thing I would try, since it does not require purchasing any additional hardware. If a webcam utility isn't an option because your camera isn't supported, then using a capture card might be. The only thing to confirm before purchasing a capture card is if the settings overlay on your camera can be turned off for the HDMI output. The same info that's displayed on the readout on the back of your camera, like shutter speed, aperture, ISO, etc., might also show on the HDMI output. If this can't be turned off via your camera settings, then that overlay is going to appear on your next video conference as well, which may be less than ideal. So you'll want to confirm that this can be turned off for your camera before purchasing a capture card. Now, there is one other type of old camera that you might have laying around, and that's an old smartphone camera. There are apps you can download that will allow you to use your phone's camera as a webcam. One such app, called Camo, even lets you use your forward-facing camera, so you can use the screen on your phone as a confidence monitor. A confidence monitor allows you to see what you look like, which can be a nice added benefit. But it is worth mentioning that the forward-facing camera is usually lower resolution than the main camera on the back. And this may mean that it's no better than the one built into your laptop. So, things to consider there. Similar to how a webcam utility or capture card will appear as an available camera in your video conferencing software, so too would this app. If you don't have an old camera laying around and you want to purchase a new one, then I encourage you to purchase one that is supported by the manufacturer's webcam utility. This will make things a lot easier when using it as a webcam and save you from the hassle of having to purchase a HDMI capture card. The last component we'll be talking about today is framing. Make sure you are in the center of your frame. Background elements such as bookshelves, plants, or wall adornments can help fill your frame and add visual interest. If possible, I encourage you to hide an LED behind some of these things. Small lights can help frame those elements and visually separate them from the background. This will add texture and depth, which brings me to the last thing, depth. Especially if you're using a camera with an aperture that can't go very wide, increasing the distance between you and your background will maximize bokeh and add some softness to your frame. Now, in this image that you see here, we have our top left, which is just a webcam camera with no direct lighting. Top right adds some direct lighting from a ring light. Bottom left is an improved camera with a nice wide aperture to add some of that softness to the background that we're referring to. And then on bottom right, we have the final output, which is with some backlighting that helps separate me from the background. It's also worth mentioning here that I'm only 8 inches from that wall right behind me, but I'm able to fake that depth with the softness that a wider aperture allows you to do. And this again is a mirrorless camera with a 1.4 aperture lens. So with improvements to lighting and an upgraded camera, your video conferences are gonna look great. So you wanna make sure you sound great too. Tune in next time for our piece on improving audio. You will find links to a lot of the hardware and even software we talked about today on our blog at showflow.tv/blog. There's specifically an article there that covers lights, camera, and audio, so I encourage you to check that out. Additionally, you can find other resources and even connect with other event pros like yourself at backstage.showflow.tv. And lastly, if you're interested in trialing one of our many software tools, then head on over to showflow.tv and sign up for a free trial. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.